Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. When we spoke a week or two ago, we talked about how I found out I was HIV positive, and then a couple days later about how my doctor handled that and the lessons I've learned because of it. But today I want to carry on that story, or more accurately, go back and talk about how I got to that position, how I got to that day in the doctor's office where I found out that I'm HIV positive. So sit back and let's begin. Before we get started, let me apologize again for running a week late with this video. I am feeling better. It is quite amazing what several new medications can do. One for the eye, one for the back, one for the esophagus. I do feel very bad that I missed this week, but I'm doing my best to get the videos out on time going forward. You know, I consider myself a reasonably intelligent person. No genius or anything, but reasonably intelligent. When I was growing up, when it came to HIV, there was one message that was drummed into our heads again and again. From any movies, TV, news programs that covered HIV, it was that HIV equals AIDS equals death. That one led to the other to the other. But even though the situation had changed by the time I was infected with HIV, that irrational fear still remains. So the question becomes, how does someone who is reasonably intelligent, who has grown up with that fear, allow themselves to be put into a situation where they're exposed to and infected by HIV? Well, I can only speak for myself, but for me, it's a direct result of the decisions that I made, the risks that I took, and the lies that I told myself to justify those risks and those decisions. As you've probably picked out as we've talked through my life story, I've always suffered with depression. I've always felt alone, outside the group, and unable to make connections with other people. Even as a young man, I knew there was something different about me, something that society told me I had to hide and repress. And so I did. And I embraced religion as a way of hiding and suppressing that. And when I did finally come out, I felt completely alone, completely unwanted, and completely unworthy of being wanted. What I wanted at that point was validation from somewhere. And since I couldn't provide that myself, I looked for it outside. But for more than 10 years, I was single. There was no one who was willing to date me, let alone love me. When you refuse to give yourself that validation and love yourself from within, you become desperate for someone else to love you, to give you that validation. And when you don't get that, when you can't get that real intimacy, you settle for its cheap substitute, casual, meaningless sex. You don't do anything that's going to scare someone off who might give you that validation. And I didn't. I got to the point fairly early on, to be honest, where if they didn't bring up condoms, I didn't. If they didn't bring up status, I didn't. And yes, I sought out casual, meaningless encounters, anything to get that validation. So I'd go through this process of putting myself at risk, going to get tested, and being terrified that they were going to tell me I was positive, being so relieved when they told me I was negative that I would swear I would never put myself at risk again, only to be putting myself back into that situation maybe a couple days later. So yeah, I kept being risky, but I kept testing negative. And after a while, you start to lie to yourself. You say, well, I'm doing all these risky things and I'm not becoming positive. Maybe I'm like resistant or immune somehow. And you know it's all bullshit. You know it. You know without a doubt that you're lying to yourself. But you want to believe it. But I kept lying to myself and taking risks. And testing negative, testing negative, and testing negative until that day when I didn't. And when I found out that the flu I had at the beginning of 2006 was actually me seroconverting. Seroconverting is the process where your body tries and fails to fight off HIV and has, usually for a lot of people, very flu-like symptoms. You know, even now, I'm fairly active on social media, and depending on the channel, I am very open about my HIV status, which invites people to ask me questions. And I'm happy to answer those questions, as long as they understand that I'm answering them based on my understanding and my experience of not a doctor or a medical expert. And I'm amazed by the level of denial. You have people who deny HIV exists or think that it's some sort of a government conspiracy cooked up in a lab. You have people who think HIV is no big deal. Cure or not, I'll just take one pill a day and I never have to worry about it. What's the big deal? And to be honest, that's simply not how HIV works. And we'll talk about that more on Wednesday. You know, denial leads to people taking more risks. And people taking more risks leads to more infections. But in addition to this denial, we also have people who swing the other way, who seem to be living in that 1983 mindset when no one knew for sure what HIV was or how it was transmitted. Even then, there were early suspicions, but there was a great deal of fear. People thinking you could catch it from a dinner plate or fork, or from kissing, or from sharing a water glass. I was actually on one social media platform last year sometime, and I'm chatting with a few people, just casual chatting, answering questions, and I get this message from someone who says, "Your profile says you're HIV, is that right?" I'm like, "Yes," thinking that he was just going to ask me a question. And I don't remember his exact words, but effectively what he said is, "You are sick. You need to go home, lock your door, crawl in the corner, and die, because you, as an HIV-positive person, are a threat to our community." Okay, what exactly did you mean? I'm not sure what you mean. And he came back and said basically, well, you're going to spread HIV. And I explained, well, first of all, I'm on my medications, I'm undetectable, so I can't transmit HIV. Plus, I'm talking to people online, and to the best of my knowledge, there is no known case of HIV having been transmitted through the internet. I'm pretty safe on that one. But he would not be dissuaded and just kept on with his insults and his attack, and eventually I had no choice but to block him. And it is amazing that that level of stigma can still exist. The level of ignorance, willful, deliberate ignorance, even, or perhaps especially in the gay community, is staggering. We in the gay community have been living with this condition for, I think, 35 years. The lack of knowledge and information is no excuse at this point. So let's break there, and we'll pick this back up on Wednesday in the musing segment, where we talk about what you need to do whether you're HIV positive or negative, and what resources are available. But before we do wrap this up, let me just say this. I don't consider myself a sinner or a saint, and I'm definitely not a monster or a victim. I'm just me. I'm just a person living my life the best I can from day to day, and sharing that with you. And if you're finding this series on being gay and being HIV positive interesting or informative, I do hope you will like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you on Wednesday. And let me just say, for the record, be good. And if you can't be good, be wicked well.